In this video, we're going to be looking at what's called a running fix. A running fix is where we can locate a boat on a marine chart. We do that by using what's called a cocked hat method, or we can use a cross-bearing fix. A cross-bearing fix uses two bearings. Two bearings. And a cocked hat uses three bearings. So the way these running fixes work is you have a person on a boat who's looking at a number of different landmarks. So for example, in this case, we've got a person who's on a boat who can see three different landmarks. Eddystone Point, that's at a bearing of 241 degrees from the boat. Cape Barren, that's at a bearing of 311 degrees from the boat, and Swan Island Light, which is at a bearing of 271 degrees from the boat. So what we're going to do to locate the boat on the marine chart is to first of all calculate the back bearings of these 3 points. So the back bearings for Eddystone Point, well, Eddystone Point from the boat has a bearing of 241 degrees. So the way we calculate back bearings is if the bearing is more than 180 degrees, then we subtract 180 degrees from it. Now looking at our three landmarks, each of these are greater than 180 degrees, so the back bearings will just be these bearings minus 180 degrees. So 241 minus 180, we'll get 61 degrees, a bearing of 61 degrees. Remember to always write bearings as 3 digits. Cape Barren will be 311 minus 180 degrees, so that will be 131 degrees. So these are true bearings. And Swan Island Light will be 271 minus 180. Swan Island Light will be a true bearing of 91 degrees. So what we do to locate the boat is we take our marine chart, and first of all we locate our three landmarks. So I've got Eddystone Point down here at the bottom, just here. I've got Swan Island Light here, and I've got Cape Barren up here. So what I'm going to do is from each of these 3 points, I'm going to project a line at each of these 3 back bearings. So from Eddystone Point, I'm going to project a line at a bearing of 61 degrees. So to do that, I'm going to place the center spot of my protractor on Eddystone Point, and I'm going to line up the lines on my protractor so that they line up with the grid on the chart. So I've got my center point on the landmark, Eddystone Point. I've remembered that I'm trying to draw a projector line at 61 degrees, so I go around 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 degrees, 61 degrees. I just put a spot there, and then using my ruler, I'm going to project a line that goes from Eddystone Point through the spot. So that's a bearing of 61 degrees from Eddystone Point. Okay, so my next back bearing was Cape Barren at 131 degrees. So I'm just going to repeat the process. I'll locate Cape Barren on my map. There it is there. So I'm going to place the center spot of my protractor on Cape Barren. I'm going to line up the lines on my protractor with my grid on the map. And once everything's lined up, I'm going to count around to 131. So 131 is just here, so I'm going to draw a little dot there. And then I'm going to project a line that goes through Cape Barren and my little dot. Now you can see the two bearings, so that's a bearing of 131 degrees from Cape Barren. You can see that those two lines have actually now crossed. So if I was doing a cross bearing fix, just using two bearings, then the location of my boat, I could locate my boat at this point here, which is just coincidentally right on the crosshairs of the compass rose. But I'm using Cocked Hat because I've got three different landmarks. So my other landmark is Swan Island Light. It's at a bearing, or the boat is at a bearing of 91 degrees from Swan Island Light. So I'm going to just repeat the process one last time. I'm going to line up my protractor with my centered spot on Swan Island Light, and I'm just going to line up now the grid lines with the lines on my protractor. Just about there, and I'm looking for a bearing of 91 degrees. And now I'm going to just project a line that goes through Swan Island and my 91 degrees. And you can see that each of those three lines actually intersect at this point here, which is where I've located my boat. So to summarize, if from the boat we can see three different landmarks, each at different bearings, then what we do is we calculate where the boat is, the bearing of the boat from those landmarks, and we do that by calculating the back bearings. So the back bearings of the boat from my landmarks are 61, 131 and 91, and then from each of those locations I project lines 61, 131 and 91, and at the intersection of those lines, that's the location of my boat. Now, often we might have an example where the boat then moves. Let's say it moves at 5 knots at a bearing of 25 degrees. for, let's say, 1 hour. So if we then need to find where the boat is, so this is where it started from. Started from here, and then it moves at a bearing of 25 degrees at a speed of 5 knots for 1 hour. We need to find where the final location of the boat is. The first thing that we're going to do is draw in our bearing of 25 degrees. So I'm going to take my protractor, I'm going to place it on the starting position of the boat. Again, I'm going to line up my grid lines on the chart with my lines on the protractor, and I'm going to just mark on there on the chart where 25 degrees is, and I'm then going to project a line from my starting position up to that point at 25 degrees. So this is a bearing of 25 degrees from the starting position of the boat. So we know that it's traveling in this direction. This is where it started from, and it travels in this direction. So we need to work out, well, if it's traveling at a speed of 5 knots for 1 hour, then how far has it actually moved? So 1 knot is equal to 1 minute. So what we need to do to work out what, so 5 knots then is obviously going to be 0 degrees and 5 minutes. So what we need to do is work out how much 5 minutes is. So to do that, we're going to look at the scale on our map. So our map, or our chart, doesn't quite fit on the screen here. Let me just turn it sideways so you can see. Our chart just goes from 40 degrees, and as we go south down the map, so we go from 40, as we're going south, or as we're going down the map, we get down to 41. So that tells me that this is these are degrees south of the equator. As we go further south, the latitude increases. So this number here, 30, actually means 30 minutes. It's halfway between 40 degrees and 41 degrees. So if we count the number of divisions between 40 degrees and 40 degrees 30 minutes, well, you can see that we've got these dark and light divisions, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. So 30 minutes, 6 of these large divisions, so each one must be 30 divided by 6, each one must be 5 minutes, and we can actually see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each of the small divisions is actually 5 minutes. So what we are trying to measure is in fact 5 minutes. So what we do to measure 5 minutes is we project from our starting position across to the scale, and we just find a convenient location. So I'm going to use this point here, and what I do is with a piece of paper, I'm going to mark on my piece of paper where 5 minutes is. So this is 5 minutes just here. Alternatively, what you could do is actually measure with your ruler. So 5 minutes measuring with my ruler is about 15 millimeters. Let me just check that. About 15 millimeters. So what I do then is I go back to my starting position and I measure along the bearing that I've just drawn in my 5 minutes worth of distance. And that represents the distance through which my boat has travelled. So my final location of my boat I could determine by, again, projecting a line across to the scale, and this one we're going to have to project down. So my final location at the finish here, so we started here at the point P, and then we travelled 5 nautical miles at a bearing of 25 degrees, and we arrived at this point here. Now, to describe what this point is, we need the latitude, which is going to be 40 degrees, and we go all the way past 30 minutes down to, we just project across to this point here. So this point here, it's going to be 30, 35, 36, 7, 8, 9. So the latitude will be 40 degrees and 39 minutes. Alright. And the longitude is going to be, well, looking down at the bottom scale, I can see as we travel east, the degrees are the longitude's getting larger. So that indicates that these longitudes are longitudes east. So our finish point is actually at 149 degrees and 0 minutes east. So 149 degrees and 0 minutes. So that's east and that's south. So there we have a running fix. So what we've done, just in summary, is we've located the start position of our boat by calculating the back bearings of the 3 landmarks that were visible from the boat, projecting those lines at those back bearings to find the start position. We've then drawn from the start position our course, which is at 25 degrees, and we've measured 5 nautical miles along our course line using the scale from the side of the chart. And that's running fixes.